Hello all, my name is Dinesh Pratap Singh Rathod. I have got All India rank 208 in UPSC CSE 2021, and today we are going to discuss strategy for UPSC prelims and general studies. My aim here is not to discuss the book lists or the smaller intricacies. Rather, I will talk on broad level on how we should approach this exam and what should be our broad strategy, and then we can fill in the small points in here. So, I will start now. As we know, there are there are three stages in UPSC exam. There is preliminary exam, then there is a main exam, and then there is an interview stage. Now we will focus on the first two stages, which is pre and mains. So, as we go to the preliminary exam, it has 6 subjects in it, which include history and art and culture. It includes geography. It includes polity. It includes economy. It includes environment. And finally, there is current affairs. I hope I am covering every subject. So basically, as a strategy for each subject, we have certain basic books. For example, for history, we have like NCRTs. Then we also do Spectrum by Rajiv Vahir for Modern India. Similarly, for polity, M. Lakshmikant is a standard book. So one important thing for preliminary exam while we are preparing for this exam is expansion of the knowledge base, which is that whatever books or study material we are studying for these subjects, they should be on our tips. In a sense, for example, if we are studying modern India in history, if there is a list at the end of the book, there is a list of various newspapers and who started that newspaper, then that list should be on our tips. Because the reason for it is that unless they will be on your tips, they will be on back of your mind, you will not be able to recall that particular fact. And if you won't be able to recall that fact, then you won't be able to mark the correct answer or eliminate a wrong option. So, in terms of preparation of knowledge base, it is very important that whatever basic books are there for these subjects, we have a conceptual clarity of it, and secondly, whatever there has to be memorized, a concept which has to be memorized, we should memorize that. Another thing is that it is a misconception of our experience that everything should be understood and there should be no need for memorization. But I disagree slightly here that when we learn something, we also need to memorize. Look, in every subject there is a part of conceptual clarity, and then there is also thing of memorization or remembering something. Unless we will memorize that knowledge, we will not be able to explain or use that knowledge into our paper. So, for example, tomorrow if I am going to give a speech on let us say Indian polity, if I don't know the basics of constitutional articles, etc., then I won't be able to explain my point with more factual clarity. So, definitely I need a conceptual clarity, but to back that I also need knowledge of, let us say, articles or basic facts. So, that's why memorization also is very important. So, first point is conceptual clarity of basics, all the subjects. Then there is remembering of facts. Remembering of facts. Third is revision of the subject. So, during my preparation, I planned or I aimed at least 7 to 10 revisions of every subject or of every basic book. And so, this is basically about all the basic books which we read. Next point comes about the current affairs section. So, here my strategy has been to rely on the newspapers. There are two reasons for it. One, that newspapers cover every topic in very comprehensive way, and you get to get to know every topic on a daily basis, on a real time basis. And when we go for any magazine that gives the event after, let's say, 1 month or 1.5 months, at that time it is difficult to connect to that particular event or news. But when we go through newspapers, we are able to learn it on the go. Second thing about newspaper is that every major issue in newspaper is covered for multiple times while that issue is going on. For example, right now the Agniveer scheme is in debate. So that issue will be discussed in the newspapers from various perspectives for many days, and if we read newspaper for those many days, those issue and topics will be subconsciously memorized in our head. So I think newspaper is important. And second, yes, a current affairs magazine should be followed because it provides us a comprehensive, compact base to study and memorize those news and concepts. At the same time, it also connects that news to our subjects. So that's an added advantage of those magazines. So we can choose any current affairs based magazine, monthly magazine, and that will be helpful. So this was all about the knowledge part of the pre. Now let's come to how to attempt the pre paper, because in my opinion that part is equally important while we are sitting in the examination, and how we are going to attempt that prelims paper. So we all know that there are 100 questions in the preliminary exam. So what I used to do, I used to go from question number 1 to question number 100 in one go and try to see which question I am able to attempt and I am able to answer 100% confidence that I am very sure about it. So suppose in first 55 minutes I went through these 100 questions, and then out of these 100 questions I could correct, or I could correctly mark at least, let's say, 35 questions. Now if we do simple math, what we are seeing in since from last 4-5 years, we are seeing that cutoff of pre hovers around 100 marks, and for 100 marks we can see that we need to correct 50 questions. 50 into 2 equals to 100. But we also know there will be negative marking also, so we will be doing some wrong questions, so we cannot attempt 50 questions, so we have to attempt more. So I will take my example. From my test series practice, I got to know that my accuracy hovers around 60 to 65%. So that way I used to attempt 85 questions, and generally my marks, I used to make, let's say, 25 wrong questions. So my 60 questions were correct, and that way my marks used to be around 100, and that's why my prelims cutoff used to be covered. So here also, as we go, as I told, when we go first question from 1 to 100, and we mark 35 questions with surety. Now every aspirant should have a number that around which he has to attempt based on the difficulty of that paper. And now let's say if that number is 85 and I have to go from 35 to 85, then I have to put my brain on other questions on how to attempt it. So that way I'll go into second iteration, and then I'll attempt the questions where I can eliminate one option or the other, and then I'll do the third round, and in the third round I'll see that finally if there's a question where I'm 50% sure, then I'll try to get down, zero down that which option can be most appropriate for that particular. So that's about attempting the paper. Second thing about attempting the paper is that we should avoid making any kind of silly mistake. So we already know that paper is difficult, knowledge is very wide. So in that, if we also make silly mistakes, then it is going to be difficult for us. So that's why what I think is, when we practice for our preliminary exam through practice tests, at that time we should make sure that we minimize our silly mistakes, which include marking wrong circle in the OMR, or not reading the question properly and missing very basic information in that question and then attempting it wrongly. Another silly mistake which I also think, that not applying our mind fully to a particular question. Sometimes if a question is very long or the terms in the question are not very familiar to us, our first impression of that question is that we won't be able to attempt it, and that's why we leave that question. So, but we till the end we should fight for solving that question, and that will be helpful. So now I think we are done with the pre-strategy, and now I will move into the main part, which is the mains exam. So mains exam, as we know, is of mains is of 17. I think it's 250 into, it has 5 papers, which includes essay and 4 GS paper, which makes it 1250, and then there are optional papers of marks 500, which makes it 1750 marks for mains examination. Now out of this, the first paper is the essay paper. Essay paper is of 250 marks, and essay paper is an important paper in a sense that the scope to score in it is huge, and the effort which we have to make in this paper are comparatively less in terms of reading than other GS papers. So in essay paper, what is important is that first, our framework for any particular essay should be practiced with time, which includes like how impactful are introductions going to be it an anecdote or any story. So we should have an impactful introduction. Then in the essay body, it is important that we have a balanced argument strategy. So when we are arguing for any particular topic, we should have balance in that. We should not present only one side of it, rather we should be presenting both sides of it. Now let's say in a particular essay we have 2 sides, which is for that particular topic and one is against that particular topic. Now within these sides, we should have 4 to 5 arguments, and each argument, whichever argument we are making, it should have a substantiation. For example, let's say the issue is on primary health, and I am saying that in India primary health suffers from a limit or has a limitation of infrastructure creation, then I should be able to match it up with the data. So that's the thing there. So that kind of substantiation should be there, and so that's the thing, and that substantiation can be done by data. That substantiation can be done by quotes of a book. That substantiation can be done by a real life example. So that's the thing, and finally we should conclude the essay on a broad, optimistic and hopeful horizon. So that's the strategy for that's the broad strategy for essay. Now let's move for the GS topics. So the general studies has 4 topics, as we know: GS 1, 2, 3 and 4. Among these 4, first 3 are kind of a similar nature in a sense that they have different topics to cover, and then we have to read about those topics. For example, there is a history, there is geography, there is polity. We have to expand our knowledge base in that, and then we have to write answers. But in GS 4, situation is a bit different, because first the nature of syllabus in itself is different, where we need to understand there are lots of abstract concepts in it, values, morals, etc. So these are not factual to the points, rather the understanding has to be in a different way. So one is that, and second part is about case studies, which case study which is not common in other topics. So I think first I looked at first 3 topics, how we can prepare for it. So one is that when we are first the knowledge expansion. So what I want to say is that if we have cleared preliminary exam and we have then I believe that 75% of knowledge gained for mains is covered, because for example history, we have covered most of the history. Only world history is a topic which is not substantially covered in the preliminary exam. So GS 1, 2, 3, we see the nature of the papers is that in the syllabus we have been given detailed details about every subject. So for history, we have been defined in modern India what we are going to, what we have to prepare. So now we have to map every topic of the GS syllabus with a particular source. So that source can be a basic book also. For example, the initial 9 topics of our GS2 paper can be covered from M. Lakshmikant. But then for the next topics, we have to also see some other sources. So that way we have to map every topic with the source from where we are going to prepare. And secondly, there should be only one source for a particular topic. We don't have to multiply our sources, so that effective revision can be done at a later stage. The second part is the most important part in GS preparation is of answer writing. So once, as I said, that 75% knowledge base is covered. So as soon as our prelims results come, we can go ahead for answer writing practice, and that should be continuously practiced. Now, what is important in answer writing practice? The first is frameworking of the answer. So, as most of us know that the framework of an answer is generally in the form of introduction, body and conclusion, which I used to follow. And in it, the introduction, it can be done in multiple ways, which is, it can be a definition based introduction, it can be a data based introduction. We can take an example from a recent happening and then start off our introduction. So, and the introduction should be a part of answer. It should not be a background to reach the particular answer. What I want to say from this is that it should contain information which is relevant to that particular question's answer. Second thing is the body. So, body again should be, there should be 2 points. One, that our point should be concise, the point should be exact, and we should have factual backing to every point. That is, the points which we answer should not be vague, rather than we should make a factual backing to it by data or by some report or something. Secondly, there should be balance in our answer. So whatever answer we are writing, we should show both sides of it. And about diagrams, etc. Yes, wherever diagrams can be used, for example, in topics of geography, in topics of security, in topics of economy, wherever there is a need of diagram, they should be made. They can be in terms of maps or can be in flow charts, etc. So I used a lot of diagrams in my GS answer writing. And finally, we should give some newness in our answers in terms of some committee reports or connecting that particular topic to sustainable development goals and writing how this particular topic can help in achieving that. Similarly, there can be some examples from recent happenings which can also be given to substantiate your answer. Finally, when we talk about GS4, again the newness in GS4 is that one, we should prepare all the definition of all the terms which are given in the syllabus. That should be on our tips. And we should have a proper conceptual criteria about all those terms which are given in the syllabus. Secondly, about the case studies, we should develop our own framework for attempting any case study. So we should have for example, what I used to do is prepare a stakeholder analysis there, so that I can cover a broad spectrum of topics in that particular case study. For example, how this particular person will be affected from decision which I am going to take, or how, if there is a decision which has been taken, if there are some negative implication, how those have to be managed. So that way the stakeholder analysis is there, and then we step by step analyze that case study. So that framework need to be developed. Secondly, in the case study, we should also develop a particular list of quotes or examples from, be it mythology or be from the life of great personalities, from which we can show that how any value or any ethical concept can be clarified much better. So if I give a definition of integrity, it is always better that if I also give example from the life of a great personality, so that the examiner will be able to connect more from it and he'll be better able to understand what we are trying to say. So this is about ethics and general studies preparation at a broad level. Thank you so much.